Welcome, everyone. We're hot off the heels of AEW's final pay-per-view of the year. Full Gear 2020 is in the books, and Michael Palmenderi and I are back to chat about it. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm doing so good right now. How about you, Brandon?
Not too bad. I'm pretty excited after this pay-per-view, man.
Oh, definitely.
Only a couple months ago, we watched All Out at the same time, and it wasn't bad, but we were both just sitting there like something feels off, you know? Like a lot of
I
mistakes, a lot of botches, a lot of things happening, and this
It
felt
was
felt like total
botchamania.
night and day.
Well, it was so opposite, which is why I feel like it was a much better pay-per-view because I was thinking about it the other day and I'm like, I don't really remember much about All Out to be honest because of the botches. Like Matt Seidel's botch is one thing, but like Matt Hardy's botch was so bad that it just like
The
we said in the
legitimate
last
injury, yeah.
Yeah, that it just like overshadowed the entire pay-per-view, and that's all I could think of. I was like, what happened on that pay-per-view? And then I remembered it was the Mimosa Mayhem match, and then I remembered Moxley went against MJF for the title. But I mean, this pay-per-view could not have been more opposite as far as the matches and the quality of all of the matches, like the entire card through and through.
For sure. But yeah, before we jump in, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Entertainment Buffet has tons of content coming your way, including more episodes where Michael and I are going to be diving into AEW pay-per-views, both past and current ones coming out. So stay tuned for that. There's also tons of podcasts coming to Entertainment Buffet, not just the Entertainment Buffet podcast, but also the Shelved podcast. There's some old episodes of Movie Trailer Trash, and also White Collars, Red Hands, a new white collar crime podcast has just joined on. So tons of sketches, tons of podcasts, tons of content coming. So if you like this, subscribe, take a look at some other stuff too. I guarantee you'll find something else you like as well. But yeah, Michael, like you said, this pay per view was just I'm almost in shock, like because it went so well, seemingly that I I looked at all like the results because I saw most of this pay per view kind of in pieces, and I only had like a couple matches left, and I saw the results, and I was like, I think everything that should happen pretty much happened. Like
Right.
it felt like a lot of stories, the results made sense, whereas like not just specifically All Out, but in the past there's been some questionable booking decisions from AEW because they're only a year in, they're not perfect, and everyone's gonna make mistakes, and like I said, not that we know like, oh, what's right and what's wrong, but it just felt so much more like cohesive throughout the show. I felt like the show was much more well balanced. It didn't feel like it dragged as much. But
Right.
but maybe it's I saw it in pieces, but it also just felt like some matches were shorter, some matches were longer that made more sense, but they didn't overbloat the pay-per-view.
Right, and I think what you were saying just a moment ago, like about questionable decisions. I mean, I think just in general in pro wrestling, like there's always going to be questionable decisions in any promotion. And all I can do is give a fan's perspective on how I think of like the pay-per-view or any wrestling that I view because I've never spent a single second in the business doing anything of any kind. But I do like to act like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Hence
maybe
why we're
that's a
doing this
disclaimer.
podcast.
Neither of us have
Yeah,
worked in wrestling at
yeah,
all, but we've paid to go to wrestling shows. We've watched it both
right.
for 20 some years, and like you said, we're no experts. We are, we're comedians in Chicagoland area. We've both written before in various forms, and you're a performer yourself as well. It's like, so we're not necessarily wrestling experts by any means, but we're also involved in the arts, and I feel like we are surrounded by storytelling and performing so much that we kind of feel like certain things should go certain ways just for what makes sense, like long-term storytelling, because the thing that I try to remind people that aren't wrestling fans, like, wrestling doesn't have an off season. There's
Right.
no season finale like TV shows. There's no end of a trilogy like movies or like sports that they take 3 to 4 or 5 months off just to not have a season. Like, it's constantly going, it's constantly growing, and stories can last a long ass time, or they can
Right.
be short and then they can have callbacks and return stuff. So it's just, there's a lot of things that it may seem small now, they're only in their first year, but you never know in the next couple of years, if you don't make right moves, it could really hurt them later.
Right. And I've been a fan of pro wrestling my entire life, and uh, all I can do is just talk about what I see as a fan and what I like, but I also have to remind myself that I'm not the only fan of pro wrestling. Like, I'm not the only demographic that they're trying to appease. I mean, I definitely fit the demographic that AEW is trying to appease. WWE is a completely different thing. Like, when I watch WWE, every once in a while I'll see a match that I think is really good, but then I'll see a bunch of ninjas appear on TV with Akira Tozawa, which I'm like, this is stupid, but I know some 8-year-old kid is at home probably eating it up. You know what I mean?
Mom, there's
So I have to.
ninjas.
Exactly.
Weren't you watching wrestling? Yeah.
I am watching
Fucking
wrestling.
wrestling.
Exactly. So I'm just like, okay, I'm not the only fan. I'm not the only person they're trying to appease. But one of the things I love about AEW is that even when I watch Dynamite, like, the matches are just solid. Like, I don't
Yeah.
see a whole lot of matches that I'm like, well, that match sucked. One thing I like about AEW is that, like, there's generally clear and decisive winners. You generally don't see like countouts. You generally don't see a lot of disqualifications. There's usually a clear, decisive winner of a match. And one thing that they do that I like is, like, some people, whether they're in pro wrestling or they're just fans of it, they'll say wins and losses don't matter. But, like, if you're building a feud, it does, right?
For sure.
Like, how can you build a feud between people if the wins and losses don't matter? Like, how can you say, like, I might have lost this time, but I deserve a rematch? Or it's like, well, you count that loss then.
Yeah.
So if that loss didn't matter to you, why would you want a rematch?
Yeah.
And one thing AEW does is they really seem to focus on wins and losses because, and I haven't noticed this until recently, so I don't know when they implemented this, but, like, when people enter the ring, like when they're coming down the ramp, they'll show their record for the year, like their win-loss record.
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
Moxley is now like 20-0 or 21-0 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I like that because it's kind of like MMA and boxing, where it's like a big fight feel, where it's just like, this is their win-loss record.
Yeah.
So as a fan, I really like that. And like I was saying a moment ago, which I'm repeating myself on this now, when it comes to a feud, wins and losses do matter in order to build a feud.
Yeah, which I think that's what, like you said, I totally agree. Wins and losses should matter. I think I talked about it last time, that they're a little wonky when it comes to, like, how, like, the rankings work, but, like, that's something that can be ironed out later. But for the most part, I like just the general wins loss type deal because, like you said, they have decisive finishes. They don't have DQs. They don't have countouts. They don't have double disqualification or whatever it may be. Like, they do time limits, which
Right.
I like, because then there becomes a stakes, because it's like,
Yeah.
well, if you want to win that title, you only have so long to do it. You can't just hope to win eventually. And then also it sets up storylines, which one I'll talk about in particular, where, like, two people had a time limit draw before. It just sets up when those do happen, they mean something, because they haven't overused the whole draw thing,
Right.
So yeah, when it comes to that, I think AEW, that's what they are better at, is making things matter. Wins and losses really matter. So, like, yeah, there was a lot of times on the card where I looked at it and I'm like, well, I hope this person wins, but I could see either one winning, because I'm looking at it, long-term storytelling, what makes more sense, which I guess we should jump into before we get too ahead of ourselves, just talking about AEW in general, is Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page in the what they called the AEW World Championship Eliminator Tournament, where the winner would be the number one contender for the AEW World Championship match, or at least they would say receives a future World Championship match. So
Right.
obviously we saw it all out. This was a tag team that they held the belts for like 200 some days. No one expected them to do that well for so long because these are both singles competitors. They were both in the elite, but for the most part, they weren't the Young Bucks. They weren't like FTR. They weren't a team, two single stars. And now the last month or two, they've been back in the single scene, and it's like, oh, such a breath of fresh air to the single scene, because the tag team scene is stacked. So you
Right.
didn't need this team in there. So I'm glad that they're broken apart, because we were able to have them be involved in different matches. Like Paige defeated Colt Cabana and Wardlow, two people he was not really fighting, and then Kenny Omega faced Sonny Kiss, and then Penta, and it's just like, oh, there's so many other people that they could face on this roster that I'm so excited just to have these two back in the singles division. But the only thing that really bothered me, and it's not like that bad of a thing, is they had such a built-in story for the last like 8 so months. They could have just had a match at Full Gear. Like it
Right.
didn't need to be the tournament finals, because soon as they showed the bracket and they were on both sides of it, I'm like, well, clearly they're going to fight each other at Full Gear.
Right, right. And they didn't need to be involved in the tournament. They could have just had a grudge match. And I personally, I love me a good old fashioned grudge match where a title isn't on the line. It's just like we are angry at each other. And I also, as a fan, I'm getting so sick and tired of tag teams being created by just two singles wrestlers that they're now putting together. It's just like you see it all the time, specifically in the WWE, where it's just like we have these two single stars who are like not really doing much of anything. We're not really giving them anything to do. So let's just put them together, and they're a tag team now, and they're always coming out to different entrance music. It's like this person's going to come out first to their entrance music, then it's going to stop, and then this person's going to come out to their entrance music, and then they're both going to walk down the aisle with each other to that person's entrance music. It's like, no, I want to see an actual tag team. Two people that come up together, that are introduced to the company as a tag team, because then when and if you do decide to split them up in the future, it could create a really great feud potentially, where it's just like, we were like brothers, we were like sisters, whatever it may be, and now like we have this ultimate feud. And those are things where it's like it doesn't even have to be for a title, because the story is just built in, it just writes itself. So I'm glad that Omega and Paige are not together anymore and they're singles competitors, because I think as singles stars, I mean, the singles division in AEW is also stacked.
Yeah.
But I look forward to seeing what Paige and Omega do as singles competitors. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But I thought this match was really, really good. I thought that this match was like the best way that they could open the show. It was a good, solid slobber knocker, as JR would call it. Calling the shots. Oh, and I wanted to say, I loved that they had Don Callis on there as one of the special guest commentators, because I love Don Callis, and he's so close with Kenny Omega that I think he actually called the first match Jericho had with Omega back in New Japan a couple years ago. So for me personally, as a mark, it was great to hear Don Callis on commentary again, who works for Impact. He's the EVP of Impact.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah.
saw them introduce him. I didn't know him well, but I totally agree. I loved this match. I knew that these. What's funny is what we have happening with AEW is like they build some of these matches, like this story where, like we said, they were a tag team for like 8 so months and they broke up, that they have so much intrigue because it seemed like Omega is leaning towards turning heel. If some aren't sure if like he's full on heel yet or like what the deal is. It seems like he's bringing like the cleaner gimmick and everything. But some still wondered if Adam Page would turn heel. Is Omega gonna turn full heel? So it's like a lot of this questions like what's gonna happen, and also I could seriously see either one winning. Now, to me, I was leaning towards the idea of Omega winning because I was like, I'd like him to go on and beat Mox for the world title because they had a crazy match last year at Full Gear, and so the idea of now where they are, Omega has been on this journey, Mox has been over here. You kept them separated. You didn't have them fight for like 6 goddamn months like they do in WWE. You kept them apart. It's going to be fresh again because last time was a brutal, lights out, gross, hardcore, extreme match basically. And like this next one is just going to be a match most likely, which I think will be best, and I'm hoping that Omega will win the title. But as far as this match goes, like you said, great way to start the show. I love having both these guys back in the scene. I could have seen Paige taking this, but
Right.
I feel like they're gonna slow burn. First he was really down on himself because he lost the first match for the world title to Jericho. Then he was in the tag division, but then he lost the tag belts and he got kicked out of the Elite. And I'm curious, what will happen with him next? Will he turn heel? Will he maybe be tempted to join the Dark Order? Like what will he do? There's a lot of possibilities with Paige, but I think Omega's the right guy. Put him in a main event match, put him in a world title match, possibly give him the world title. So yeah, I'm excited with Omega winning this.
Yeah, I think Omega is gonna be the one to end up taking the title off of Moxley, and I think that right there is just what I would like to see. Is I feel like that is just like a great way to start a feud between Omega and Page somewhere down the road because the seeds have already been planted, and I feel like Page, once Omega wins it, that Page could be next in line to win the title, which I think, there's going to have to take a little bit of time to build up Page for the TV audience, just because I'll say this and then we can move on to the next match, but like people that are huge fans of pro wrestling are really familiar with a lot of AEW's roster.
Yep.
But your cable TV audience is not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in my opinion who AEW needs to take their time to let the audiences get used to knowing, especially when you have non WWE guys on TV. People aren't really gonna know who Hangman Adam Page is. They're not really gonna know who Kenny Omega is, which is why they need TV time in order for your regular TV audiences to get used to seeing them, so then they can eventually build up a feud. So then like a year or so down the line, it makes sense for Hangman Adam Page to finally win the championship because he's already an established TV character by that point.
Yeah, exactly. Now that AEW's been on TNT for a year now, people who have been watching have been exposed to him and Kenny putting on great matches in the tag division, and now seeing them at single stars, there's a lot of possibilities. I agree. I think also Adam Page is young. You don't need to throw the belt on him right away. You can really build that story because when, say, next year or a year from now, a year or two from now, when he finally gets that chance again, he's like, I can't blow this again. I was in the first match for it against Jericho and I lost. I gotta, because one thing that I love that AEW does is they know that the audience is smart enough if they've been following along to remember things between guys. They have great promo packages and great the announcers do a great job of filling people in on the history, because one thing that I hate WWE would do is, this may not have actually happened, but let's just say for an example, once upon a time, McIntyre and Ziggler would say be heels against like Rollins and Ambrose, for back in the day, and they're the baby faces. But then all of a sudden, like two people switch heel and faces, and then like McIntyre's a face now, but then like Rollins is the heel, and sometimes they'll just have like faces and heels, even though they faced each other in the past and they flip-flopped like good and evil. They'll like all of a sudden be in a different feud as if we didn't already see them feud together.
Right.
And like they won't touch on it. It's almost like I've heard that sometimes Vince McMahon will be like, no one remembers. It's like, yeah, well, some of us have been watching for years. We know that like Cena and Orton have faced a bajillion times,
Well, he doesn't watch the show.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Like, I've heard so many people that work for the company in interviews and podcasts say that like he doesn't watch the show. So when I watch Raw and SmackDown, like I think about that all the time because there's oftentimes no continuity amongst a lot of things.
Exactly.
And, like,
continuity.
And like I think you and I were talking about Jericho on that Inside the Ropes thing where he said where he was going against Fandango at WrestleMania, and it was Fandango's debut match, and Chris Jericho was talking about the IC title, the Intercontinental Championship, and Vince McMahon was like, nobody gives a shit about the Intercontinental Championship. It's just like, that's because you don't. And when I watch the product, which I do regularly, like it's very obvious who and what they're putting their attention on and who they're not putting their time and attention on. And it's just like, so for example, like they're really putting a lot of time and effort into building this feud that we've had between Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre for months, right?
Yeah.
Almost the entire pandemic era, right? But then all of a
since
sudden,
like July, August.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you watched Hell in a Cell or not, so spoilers. But I mean, Otis had a match against Miz. Whoever won got the Money in the Bank contract. And like Tucker took the briefcase when the ref wasn't looking and hit Otis with it, knocked Otis out. Miz got the win, so he's got the briefcase now. But Otis and Tucker are on two completely different brands, so there's no way that the two of them are going to have a feud now. It's just like, hold on a second.
What was the point?
Tucker turns on Otis. They're on a different. He's on a different brand than Otis, and then the following night, Tucker has a singles match against Ricochet and gets beat within just a couple minutes by Ricochet. It's like, hold on, you're trying to make us, the audience, believe that Tucker is now this heel and he gets by, and this is nothing against Ricochet. It's just like, you can't have somebody turn heel and then have him lose in a match the next night. And also, like, what about this feud we could have had between Otis and Tucker that is now going to be non-existent because they're on completely different brands? Like, it's just like, this doesn't make any sense to me, and I get so frustrated.
Yeah. So that's something that AEW is so much better at least so far. The time will always tell, but like they remember when people go against one another. They reference things from the past. They know that people who have been watching the last year are most likely still watching, and they'll remember. Someone brought up, so in the and I'll say this and then we can move on, but in the very first that they did the tag team tournament for the AEW titles, Young Bucks were the number 1 seed and Private Party was the number 8 seed, and Private Party beat the Young Bucks, so that Young Bucks were no way going to win the tag titles. They were knocked out of the tournament right away. And like during this build up for like the FTR and like Young Bucks, I'm pretty sure they did Young Bucks versus Private Party again. And even in their match on Full Gear, like the announcers were bringing that up. It's like, that was October 2019 and they're still bringing it up as if it was yesterday because it matters. And like, I get it. If something happened 8 years ago, maybe you don't have to reference it. But look at how beautiful that feud was with Daniel Bryan and Miz. Because like that was two people that they kept referencing that. So I hope that AEW continues that trend. You know, we can have Omega versus Page 2 someday. We don't need to do a 3 to 6 month program with them right now. Save that. That's a built-in feud for later. Let's get other combinations in there, and like you said, maybe one of them has the title later and the other challenges for it. Built-in feud already. So yeah, great opener here. Let's move on into the next match, which was Orange Cassidy versus John Silver, number 4 from the Dark Order. And yeah, this was fine. It was great because it was two non WWE guys, two AEW younger guys who get to have a pay-per-view match, and about a 9-minute match, nothing too extravagant, but it was entertaining. John Silver is hilarious. I've seen him in some other promos with Dark Order, and he's just hysterical. Orange Cassidy has been slowly been built, over the last year, especially his feud with Jericho, and now he's kind of slowly feuding with the Dark Order. I think this match was exactly what I expected it to be, and it was just fine. And I'm curious what where this feud goes with the Dark Order.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a whole lot of stuff written on it in my notes, other than I was like, this was a good match. I mean, I thought there was one of the nice touches in the match. I thought was John Silver ripping off the pockets of Orange Cassidy, which totally takes away that whole build up to put his hands in the pockets. So I thought that was funny. I thought that was a good touch by John Silver there. I've enjoyed watching John Silver on TV, and this goes back to what I said a couple moments ago, where I didn't know who John Silver was prior to AEW, but since I watch AEW regularly, I watch Dynamite regularly, I'm now getting familiar with who he is as a TV character in AEW. And I thought that their feud in Dynamite has been good, and I thought this match was really good. Like you said, it wasn't a very long match, 9-10 minutes, and that's fine. I don't need every match to be 40 minutes long. I feel like sometimes people think long matches equals classic, and that's not the case. You could have a really good 10-minute match, and that's exactly what this was. It was a really good 9-10 minute match. Both guys did a really great job. I mean, it wasn't a spectacle. Nothing major happened. It was just a good old-fashioned wrestling match.
And it was exactly where it needed to be on the card. You're following Omega and Page.
Right.
And it was funny.
It's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, I was, so like I said, I didn't watch it live, but I was reading what was happening live to watch later. And when they reviewed Page and Omega and saying how great it was, they're like, how do you follow that? And
right.
It's well, people love Orange Cassidy. Throw him out there. And John Silver's hilarious. Throw them out there for 9-10 minutes. It'll be a great... Right. And I don't mean filler in a bad way. Fillers, sometimes people take that as an insult. It's there's nothing wrong. They still got on a pay-per-view. They still got exposure. And I think one thing that AEW needs to just be careful of is just be careful of overexposure with Orange Cassidy. I think one thing that was always great about him is, he was new to me when I started watching AEW. But if you have him on too much and in too many matches, I think, will become desensitized to him. So, if you need to have him be in a group feud where him and best friends are versus Dark Order, that's fine. But keep doing what you're doing, slowly building him. After, when he's done with Dark Order, maybe he can face someone more high profile, but he's a good slow burn. I think he's selling merchandise. He's getting over with crowds, or he was already over, but hopefully, like you said, the TV audience, he's getting over with them. You don't need to strap him to a rocket. Just slow build. It'll help that in a year or two from now, he'll really be built up. Maybe not a main eventer, but when he eventually gets that TNT championship, I'm guessing down the line, it'll feel special because we saw him climb that ladder.
Well, and he's also become an attraction because of his gimmick, And that's one of the reasons I agree that like I don't need to see him on TV every week because I feel like when you do see him, it's special, you
Yeah,
know? And because of the way his gimmick is, I feel like it works best if he's not on TV all the time. Not saying I don't want to see him because I really like him and we've seen him wrestle live multiple times for AEW, but he's one of those people where like when he shows up, the fans are going to pop because he's over. He's
yeah,
over with the fans. He may not be as well known as like Chris Jericho per se, but he's over with the fans. The wrestling fans like him. Now it's a matter of like the TV audience is getting to know him.
for sure. So let's move on to the next match, the first title match of the night, which was Darby Allin versus Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship, which Cody Rhodes finally got the full name back with the trademark from WWE, apparently. Which,
Oh man, it's so funny because Justin Roberts, like man, when he announces your name, like he's all in, pun intended. Um, but like usually when he says Cody and it was just Cody, he would like really go out with that name. But he barely hit the Cody and really emphasized the Rhodes
yeah.
when he announced Cody Rhodes, and
Which
you could see how happy that made Cody Rhodes.
Which it was something that was so funny to me because what AEW would do, which I love how smart, Cody and them would be, is they would always have either Dustin Rhodes or Brandy Rhodes come to the ring and like they have those names like trademark or whatever. So what they would do is it'd be like Cody and Brandy Rhodes,
Right, right.
or Cody and Dustin Rhodes. So like that way
Rhodes.
it's like still being used, but like technically we're not. So yeah, I was really excited for that. This match, I alluded to earlier. We talked about time limits being a factor in previous matches. The first time there was a time limit draw was between Cody and Darby Allin last year at Fyter Fest. And it was kind of like a moment that really put Darby Allin over because they're like, oh my God, Cody couldn't beat Darby in 20 minutes. Like
Right.
this young kid is something. He's not just a side attraction. Like he is over with the crowd and he has skills, and like they've been doing this kind of slow build with Darby over the he's had even matches with Moxley. He's been in kind of like tag team stuff with Moxley. He's had a feud with Team Taz and so forth, and like he's been in the background, but he's always been over with the fans. He's always been great. And so when Cody immediately said like, oh, it's going to be him and I at Full Gear, I'm like, okay, is Cody just going to beat him again? Because like they've faced other times after their time limit draw and like Cody won. So like I hope they don't just have Cody beat this young kid again. But I won't get to the ending yet. But Michael, what'd you think going into this match? Your thoughts on Darby Allin?
Well, first off, I just want to say Cody Rhodes is some of the greatest entrances in pro wrestling. Um, Seriously, like his entrances are fantastic. Like I've always been a fan of Cody Rhodes, even when he was in WWE. He's one of those people who can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. And
Dashing Cody Rhodes.
what's that?
Dashing Cody Rhodes. You remember that
I
gimmick?
must ask you a question. It's like, oh, jeez. So I love the fact that like Cody Rhodes has so much creative control over what he does now because he's got a mind for the business, and how do you not when your father is the American dream, Dusty Rhodes?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm glad that he has his last name back because that name is a part of a legacy, and that's part of his legacy, and that's his family's legacy. And like, you can't talk about Cody or Dustin without talking about Dusty Rhodes, who's like was one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time and has influenced generations of pro wrestlers. Like when NXT was first becoming a thing. Like Dusty Rhodes was the teacher conducting promo classes for everybody. And I don't know if you've ever seen any videos of it, but like I've seen videos of like Bray Wyatt and like Seth Rollins and like Charlotte Flair like cutting promos, and like when Charlotte Flair was cutting promos when she first got into like NXT and was training, like they were bad. They were not good at
I
all.
bet.
And she would talk about how nervous she was, and like she would get so nervous she couldn't cut a promo. But then like all that help she got from Dusty and all that practice, and now she's, I don't know where she's been the last couple of months, to be perfectly honest with you. She's all over Instagram, but she's not in WWE. But now she cuts such good promos, like you can tell she's her father's daughter, right?
Yeah.
I thought this match was really good. It was a hard-hitting match. Darby Allin's been around for a long time, but he's new to TV audiences. It's one of those things where it's like this match made me realize this is a new generation of wrestlers, just because Cody Rhodes, not a huge guy, right? 6 foot, maybe 6'1", probably like 220 pounds, something like that. To me, that's a big guy because I'm not very big. But like when you looked at him in WWE, he was a smaller guy compared to some of those giants, right?
Yeah.
Well, I looked at him again in this match against Darby Allin, and he looked so huge compared to Darby Allin. I'm like, how big is Darby Allin?
Well, also, apparently Cody, over some time away when he stepped away to film the show and was beaten by Brody Lee, apparently he put on like 15, 20 pounds of muscle.
He looks huge.
Yeah.
He looks huge. He looks way bigger than he did when he was in WWE. No, I thought this match was great. I was a big fan of this match. I don't want to get to the outcome yet, just so you can put your input in it. But I've also enjoyed like seeing the celebrity cameos building up Darby Allin as well, like Steve-O. I thought that was hilarious.
Tony Hawk.
But yes, Tony Hawk, yeah, which makes sense because of his skater gimmick that he has.
Yeah.
But Darby Allin is somebody that's like grown on me since I've started watching him, and I was very pleasantly surprised by the outcome of this match.
Yeah, who he reminds me of, and I'm sure people have made this comparison, but like it's funny because JR loved calling Jeff Hardy the charismatic enigma, and like every
Right.
time he's talking about Darby Allin, he's like, "Oh, this kid, he's so he's so interesting. He's an enigma." He says it
Right.
over and over, because to me, Darby Allin reminds me of a young Jeff Hardy. Not just
Yeah.
because of the face paint, but think about like Jeff Hardy. What's he known for? He's known for his high flying. He's known for his risk taking. He's also known for someone who he generally wasn't that good at promos or anything, but fans just loved him. Like kids just loved him. They loved dressing the way the Hardy Boys did, and especially in his singles career, they loved doing the face paint with him. The arm. I remember tons of people in the audience would have like his armbands, and like I feel like Darby Allin's taken the same path when it comes to his tenure in AEW. Not just because of the face paint, but he is always entertaining to watch. It felt like even when he lost, you still wanted to continue to root for him because he was an underdog and there was a chance he could win. And I think it was great to finally see him in a pay-per-view match, because he wasn't, I don't believe he was in the Battle Royal at All Out. And then I think at Double or Nothing, he was in like the ladder match. So he has always just been in like pay-per-view group matches lately. But for this to just be a one-on-one wrestling match and show that he can go, he's not just risk-taking and just like the skater gimmick. Like, yeah, he lives that gimmick, but he has just genuinely, I think, gotten over with the crowd, that I'm like, oh, he's going to be one of the big faces of the company, if he keeps wrestling for a long time, and AEW continues the path they're going, he's going to be a world champion someday. He's going to be like, he's a perfect baby face.
Yeah, I think this match has just proved that like AEW has a lot of faith in him and they're willing to put a lot of stock into him.
Yeah, which it's because over the last year he hasn't really won a ton, they needed to give him the win, which we can finally get to the ending here. And Darby Allin wins the TNT Championship, which
Right.
I was so happy for because, we
Right.
talked about it in All Out. It's like there's a lot of ex WWE guys that were holding titles. There was Brody Lee and Cody, there was Mox, there was FTR. Like most of them,
Jericho.
yeah, Jericho. Most of the men's championships have been WWE guys, which I get it's going to happen, but they're also known and they're veterans. But it felt like there weren't many like homegrown AEW people. And Darby Allin feels like that first one where it's like he's a young guy who I don't think was ever really on TV ever before because he was never an Impact, right?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I think he was in Evolve. He was like on the independent circuit a lot. So I mean, he's been around for years. He's just not been on TV.
Yeah.
Which is why like mad props to Cody Rhodes for doing him the honor of putting him over in this match. And like, when it comes to winning a match in AEW, it doesn't get much bigger than Cody Rhodes unless it's the AEW champion.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they could have easily went the other way of like, well, Cody just won the belt back from Brody Lee in the dog collar match. Let's just keep it on Cody again for a while. So this felt like a nice mix up because Cody did the whole open challenge thing where he wrestled a bunch of guys and held it for months before he got squashed by Brody Lee. And I was
Right.
like, are they just going to do that again? Like, sure, his matches are fun, and I love him exposing people to the business and primetime TV, but, like, you can just have them on the match. It doesn't need to be a TNT title AEW match. So it's like, all right, put it on someone else. Cody can always win it again someday, or just feud with other people. But you put it on the young guy, the one that it finally shows like, yes, he can win. Hopefully it out now also sprinkles up that mid-card division a little to where he's clearly going to fight Team Taz soon. Maybe eventually another Sammy Guevara feud because they've had great matches together. Maybe Paige, who knows? Maybe a Orange Cassidy Darby match. Like, there's lots of possibilities because Darby has been kind of either injured or just in multi-man matches. So, like, there's a lot of one-on-one match possibilities with him now with the championship.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, next, let's move on to the next title match, which was Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose with, excuse me, Vicky
Oh my
Guerrero.
god. Oh my god. So I just want to say this before I get into the match that Vicky Guerrero is one of the greatest heels ever in pro wrestling. She is the ultimate Karen, and
Yeah.
she has the "I'd like to speak to your manager" haircut, right?
Yes.
And
And
it's
she's been doing
fantastic.
that for years. Like, that's not like a new
Years.
thing.
It's not like exactly, and I think one of the reasons I love it so much, it's like I've heard so many people in the pro wrestling business that have worked with Vicky Guerrero over the years and have known Vicky Guerrero personally that say that like off camera she is one of the sweetest and nicest people you will ever meet, which is why I love the fact that she plays that character that she's been playing for years so well. Like she's such a great heel. She's so good at being easy to hate because of the way she acts. And man, I got to give her mad props to where it's due because she's the kind of person that when she speaks it's almost like nails on a chalkboard. But then like you watch her in an interview in the episode of Dark Side of the Ring about Chris Benoit, and she's just like this incredibly sweet human being who has been through so much.
Yes.
And is still not only a sweet human being, but like is still giving so much to the pro wrestling business.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I was so glad to see her come into AEW because I think whether it's in the women's division or whether it's she approaches being a manager to someone in the tag or the singles men division, uh, I love seeing her. It works. Like you said, it works. It was Karen before Karen became a term.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
I love that AEW features managers because, some wrestlers aren't the best at promos. It's like, well, give people like her who they may not be athletic, in their prime or anything, but they can go on the mic and Vicky can go on the mic. So, um, this match, I'll admit, I don't have a ton to say because I really have one gripe with it. I think both people I've seen them put on matches. Sheeta and Rose, they put on great matches in the past, and had a pretty decent match at Double or Nothing back in earlier on in 2020. But the thing that has been such a problem with the AEW women's division is they never have stories. Look at the rest of the card. It is with stories. We just talked about the story between Omega and Paige. Orange Cassidy and John Silver in the Dark Order. Darby Allin being told by Cody he can never be the face of TNT, and also just the fact that they've wrestled multiple times and have a history. Young Bucks and FTR. Matt Hardy and Sammy, MJF and Jericho, Moxley and Kingston. Everything on the card has a story except for Sheeta and Nyla. Their only story was they wrestled at Double or Nothing and Nyla wanted a rematch. That's their story. And I get it that not everything can be the most gripping long-term storytelling, but it's not just this pay-per-view. It's the last, I don't know, probably since Sheeta won the title at Double or Nothing. She's pretty much I'm going to compare her to Asuka, not just because they're both Japanese, but just because Asuka didn't really have great stories in NXT either. She just was oh, she's the champ, and who's gonna finally take the belt from her? And that's what they've been doing with Sheeta is she went up against Penelope Ford, she went up against Thunder Rosa, and now she's gone up against Rose twice, and probably other people that I'm not thinking of at the moment. But it's great. I get it. Maybe she's not the best at promo, whatever it may be, but give her a story with a match and a feud. Don't just have her be in matches because this is the only women's match on the card and there's no story. And it's yes, there was one on the pre-show, but it's something that WWE has struggled with forever. They've had times where Becky Lynch or with Bayley and Sasha where they throw in some good feuds, but for the most part, women don't really get good stories, and it's a shame because a lot of these people in the AEW women's division, I would probably care more if there was a real reason why they were fighting besides just the fact that it's for the title.
Yeah, and one thing about this match is I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I didn't think it was a bad match, but to me this was the clunkiest match of the night.
Yep.
I didn't feel like it flowed as well as a lot of the other matches. It wasn't as smooth as a lot of the other matches. And as much as Sheeta has grown on me, it wasn't believable in my eyes, for Nyla Rose to lose to Sheeta. And I think that's probably part of them trying to build up Sheeta, to be more of a dominant women's champion, which totally understandable. And sometimes I have to remind myself that I shouldn't be putting as much logic into pro wrestling as I do. But when you look at the two of them, physically speaking, if you were to put those two in a real fight, there's no way you would ever believe that Sheeta would beat Nyla Rose. If we're putting them in an MMA match or in a street fight, no chance. And maybe they're trying to keep the title on Sheeta for an extended period of time. But when I watched this match, it was definitely a match where like I just kind of got up and moved around and did some things and had it on because I just wasn't really that invested into it. And I think a big part of that is like you had mentioned, there's really no story to it, and whatever story was there, it wasn't as built up as much as like Page and Omega was.
Or any of the other feuds on the card. That's the
Yeah,
thing that bugged me, was when I really looked at the card, I was like, the women never get a story. You know, even when she went against Penelope Ford at like Fighter Fest, when any of the times where she even Thunder Rosa, it's like they never give Sheeta or the women stories. And I think when I've looked at like kind of like a lot of articles I read about like AEW's like year in review, because they just recently crossed 1 year of being on TNT with Dynamite. They're like, what are the pros, what are the cons? You know, pros, obviously tag division, which we'll talk more about soon. Incredible. You know, they have been slowly building some new stars that are brand new. They've had incredible matches, and yet, but one of the weaknesses that's always listed is the women's division. And it's not because
right.
of the talent of the women, it's because it feels like the writers or whoever's the one booking the decisions, whether it's like Cody and the Young Bucks or whoever, it's like they're putting all the effort into the rest of the card, and they're forgetting that the women's division needs stories too. And
Well, that and
so,
it was the oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, you were probably just going to say what I was going to say, which was it's the only women's match on the card.
I was literally just going to say that. It was
Yeah.
the only women's match on the main card. You had a women's match for a title on the pre-show or their buy-in or whatever they call it. And it's just like, why didn't you have that on the main card as well? Like, as much as I love Orange Cassidy, I would have been okay with him and John Silver being on the buy-in
Yeah.
and having Serena Deeb be on the main card. So it's like, you have this 4-hour show and only one women's match. It's just like,
Yeah.
all right, and it's placed like right smack dab in the middle too
Yeah,
of the whole card. So
it's always never put in the right spot, which is, yeah, they either throw it in the middle, or sometimes they'll throw it between, you know, a big tag, like, because a lot of times their tag team matches feel like a main event, and like they'll put the like a tag match, and then like the women's match, and then the main event, you know, something like that, where they put it, or like you said, smack dab in the middle, to where it's just like it's forgettable. It's really
right,
forgettable, and like I feel
right.
so bad because I think both people are very talented. I love both of them. Also, I just don't think they have the best in-ring chemistry together, because like you said, it's very clunky, and also I felt like their match at Double or Nothing was clunky as well.
Yeah,
Not everyone's gonna be, you know, as smooth as Nick Jackson flying around the ring, or like the Lucha Brothers, but also like when two people don't have chemistry, like don't keep putting them together. But I have a
right.
feeling what they're doing is, you know, Britt Baker's back from injury the last couple months. You know, I think they're gonna build for Britt Baker to maybe be the one to take the title from Sheeta, because Britt Baker is like one of the main people in the women's division that has killer promo skills.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
wildly
She's great.
entertaining.
Right, right.
So, and I feel bad. I don't want to shit on, like I said, it's not the competitor's fault, the fact that they're not being given a story.
Exactly. They're doing the best they can with what they have, which is why, like, when I watch pro wrestling in general, I always have to watch it with an open mind, just because these wrestlers, these entertainers, they're doing what they're told. They're employees of these companies, and they're doing what their bosses are telling them, and they're just trying to make the best out of what they're given to work with.
For sure. So, let's move on to the next match, which was for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. The Young Bucks, Nick and Matt Jackson versus FTR, Cash Wheeler, and Dax Harwood. FTR just recently won the titles at All Out from Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page. And so this is a match that has been built up for years. You know,
Right.
when FTR was the revival in WWE, they would sometimes do cryptic kind of social media jabs at the Young Bucks, and the Bucks would return it. And there was a lot of kind of like mutual adoration for one another as tag team competitors, and the fact that they knew that someday they were going to wrestle and it was going to be
Right.
good. And we all wanted it because FTR is very ground and pound, old school, like classic tag team style, and the Young Bucks are high flyers who also put on great matches. So putting them together, this had a lot of hype to live up to, much like the Page Omega FTR match, like a lot of hype, which maybe one of AEW's only downfalls is the fact that when you hype things so hard, it's like it puts a lot of pressure on those wrestlers to capitalize. I think Page and Omega, were fine. And then, well, not fine. They were great. And then like these guys pulled it off as well. I liked this match. I think they told a great story, but I was a little worried going into it. I'm like, man, this is a feud like years in the making. Like, I hope as good as like we all want it to be.
Yeah, and like oftentimes there is a lot of expectation to live up to, but it's not like they're naming it the greatest wrestling match of all time. You know what I mean?
The greatest tag team match in
It's
history
of all time. I think one of the things
Before
that
it
I
happens,
really
we're calling
loved,
it that.
Exactly. I think one of the things that I loved about this match so much is like you can definitely see each tag team's influence shine in this match. Like you can tell that the Young Bucks were, heavily influenced by like the Hardy Boys, because you can tell like that's a big part of
And
their
the
style,
Rockers.
probably like the Rockers, Whereas when you look at FTR, you can tell a lot of their influence probably came from like Tully and Arn, as well as like the Steiner brothers, because they're old school ass kicking,
No
it's
flips, just fists.
just fists. Even though I think, what was it Wheeler, he did like a 450 splash, which was fucking incredible.
Which is
I mean,
incredible, but that's what cost him the match.
exactly.
That's
Well,
the story.
it was him.
That's the
It
story.
was him taking time to decide if he was going to do it or not, and then doing it. It's just
Yeah.
like, bro, you had all this time to do it and you didn't. But I mean, they needed an excuse for why they had to put the title over. But I think one of the things I loved about this match that these teams do really well, that I think AEW does a good job with their tag division in general, is they're always keeping a fresh man in. Like, even if it's like, Nick tags in Matt comes in, does a couple moves, and then tags, Nick back in. Like, they're constantly, bringing somebody else back in. And even I'm just like, well, who's the legal man right now?
Yeah.
But it
Which
always,
so often
like,
the announcer's like, all right, we got Wheeler and we got Nick Jackson. Like they had to like
yeah,
think.
yeah, yes. But I thought this match was great. I mean, it was high flying. It was hard hitting. These are, when you talk about chemistry, these tag teams have chemistry,
Yeah.
and they work very, very well together. And it's a match that like wrestling fans wanted to see. It's certainly not going to be the only match that these teams have, moving forward with this company. I wasn't surprised that the titles went on the Young Bucks, but I was surprised to see FTR drop them so quickly after just winning them.
Well, so that's that. There's a couple of things. It's like it's so interesting to look at titles when they're just created.
Right.
Because the titles were first won October of 2019 from SCU. Then Page and Omega held them for like 260 days. It was like a long time. Dropped them to FTR. And then when I saw that they were setting up FTR and Bucks already, I was like, okay, I thought they would save that a little while, which they've already been saving it, so maybe they're like, let's not save it and build it even more. But they Harwood even said this in a promo when Young Bucks announced this, but like I feel like they shot themselves in the foot when the Young Bucks said, if we don't win, we'll never challenge for the titles again, because that's exactly what Cody did last year at Full Gear. He said, if I don't win the championship from Jericho, I'm never challenging for that world title again. So to me, when they did that, I'm like, well, there's no way that they're going to have Cody never challenge for the world title and then the Young Bucks never challenge for the tag titles. Like,
Right.
Cody's making the TNT championship important. Great. But, like, what would the Young Bucks do if they didn't win, like create a 6-man tag division,
Right.
with new
Right.
belts there. Like that doesn't make any sense. So like I would have loved if they just had the buildup that they did, but not thrown in the caveat of like, if we don't win, we'll never challenge for them again. Because to me, they gave the ending away. I was like, okay, so a month in, FTR is going to lose the titles. But I wonder if this is going to be one of those things where they're going to fight again and maybe possibly on like a special match on Dynamite and maybe set up a third one at Revolution or something and do, you know, a real series of matches and prolong the feud, because like there's no way you just put those teams together and then never have them fight again.
Right. And it's like, as soon as they announced the stipulation, I'm like, do you really expect me to believe that the Young Bucks, who are, also behind creating AEW,
Yep.
are a year into Dynamite, are never going to challenge for the tag titles ever again? What are they going to do on the roster? Like, sure, they can continue to be tag teams, but like, whether you're a tag team or you're a singles competitor, if you're not trying to go for a championship, then why are you in the promotion?
Yeah. And so,
You know?
yeah, they kind of shut them. Now, if like Omega and Page were the ones that like, if we don't win the titles, we'll never challenge for the tag titles again. It's like, well, you guys are single stars. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be in the singles division. But like the fact that the Young Bucks did this, it's like, you guys have been nothing but tag teams your entire career. You wanted to come build AEW to build a killer tag division, and you're doing that. But like you said, you can't expect me to believe that they're never going to challenge for those titles again. Now,
Exactly.
if like we said, if they hold them for like a month or two and drop them again, I'm not mad at that, because the titles were just created a year ago and you had Page and Omega hold them for such a long time that it's like you can't just constantly go from like long reign to long reign to long reign. Like it's not gonna feel fresh. I'm not saying I want them to drop it this immediately this Wednesday on Dynamite.
Right.
But like you said, it was surprising to take them off FTR so fast. But maybe they're just thinking to ourselves, you know what? We have a big tag division. Let's maybe have some feuds last a little longer and maybe play hot potato with the titles, because we have tons of tag teams to get to. And if everyone holds it for 9 months, then like, 2-3 years go by and what, you just have Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy be way later in their career, and now they're going for the tag titles.
Right.
It's like you need to spread it around a little, and not everyone needs to be champion, but it's just you can't have a great division and only ever have like 2 teams hold the belt.
Right. Exactly. But, I have a feeling that whoever gets it next, it's on the Young Bucks in order to elevate the next team.
For sure. But yeah, this is a great match. We thought it would be. It was. I'm excited to see where things go now. I'm guessing some sort of stipulation type match, or maybe a rematch on a special Dynamite episode, and then maybe come February for Revolution, some sort of grudge match. But like, we'll see going into the end of the year here what's going to be next for the tag division. Pleasant surprise for them to win it, and like we were saying, I'm glad they didn't have them like lose and then it's just like, yep, we're like Cody, we'll never challenge for the belts. It's like, yeah, that's very selfless of you, but also from a storytelling perspective, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
We're the best tag team in the business. We won't.
But you can't go for the titles.
We can't go for the titles because we lost.
But we're the best.
But let's move on. We have a few matches left on the card. This one I almost forgot was going to happen, and it's
And you shan't.
Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara in an Elite Deletion match. So, go listen to our podcast when we talked about All Out, because one of the big things that a lot of people criticized about All Out 2020 was the nasty injury to Matt Hardy with his match against Sammy Guevara, and then trying to continue the match weirdly. And now they were going to do another match. I'm like, oh no. At least this is pre-recorded, so hopefully they won't get injured, and if they do, they edit it out. But like, this feud has been going on for months, and like usually AEW doesn't have feuds last this long, but like it feels like because All Out was such a letdown, they're like, well, we got to do another one then because that one sucked. Like we're kind of like Taker, we don't know when to end it, you know.
Survivor Series, farewell.
So yeah, what were your thoughts on the Elite Delete?
Probably the most entertaining match on the entire card, in my opinion.
Really?
I'm not saying it was the best match. I'm saying it was the most entertaining. There's a big difference between those two.
Sports entertainment, not wrestling.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's just like I've become a big fan of these cinematic matches, but like you and I were talking the other day, you there is such a thing as too much. There's too much of a good thing. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think it was something along the lines of like it's not a treat if you have it all the time.
Yep.
And when you look at like AEW and WWE, since this pandemic has hit, they've really had to think outside the box with these matches. So yeah, cinematic matches make sense because when it comes to like CDC guidelines and regulations and stuff, it helps because there's far less people, because it's just like a camera crew and whoever the wrestlers are involved in the match.
Yeah.
Generally, they're outdoors, so they're not like in a specific like isolated area with like walls and ceilings and everything like that where they're inside. This was obviously by far a much better match than they had at All Out, and it was full of surprises.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked, that it was at the Hardy compound, because, I don't know if you ever really followed TNA or Impact. I can honestly say I haven't. But I feel like because AEW is not afraid to bring up other promotions, that they're able to wrap in stuff that these men and women have done in other promotions into theirs. So it really has a lot of continuity to it.
Yeah.
And I haven't really had a problem with the Sammy Guevara, Matt Hardy feud, but for me there are times where it's just like, okay, when I see a match that makes it feel like it should be done, then it should be done. And because of what happened at All Out, yeah, they needed another match in order to put a bow on this feud, and I kind of hope that this is the bow on the feud, but Matt Hardy has just done an exceptional job at elevating Sammy Guevara, and getting him on TV and showing what Sammy Guevara can do. And I feel like everything they did with the match, I mean, there were times where I was like, oh shit, and times where I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
And even though it was all at the Hardy compound, I'm doing air quotes for those of you who can't see. Actually, I don't know if I do need to do quotes because I think it's legitimately like the Hardy compound. I think it's just what they call it. But it took place in lots of different spots at the Hardy compound,
Yep.
which I really liked.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this match was entertaining. It was not a great wrestling spectacle, but it was entertaining. When it comes to these cinematic matches, we saw it All Out when it wasn't done well. We saw the tooth and nail match or whatever they called it with Britt Baker and Big Swole in a dentist office, where
Not a fan.
Yeah, it felt like, okay, you guys clearly didn't edit this, and it wasn't entertaining. And I think between WWE and AEW, there's definitely future in cinematic matches, and
Sure.
and I think Hardy, like you said, I never watched his original tenure in Impact when they were first doing stuff like this. I heard about it and it was praised a lot, and that's awesome. I'm glad because he kind of had this second wind in his career where he was playing this really wild character and kind of directing this new style that, it wasn't brand new to wrestling, but it was reintroduced to audiences who maybe didn't know it from like years ago. And Yeah, I think that this match, like you said, it was entertaining, much better than their match at All Out, because they were at the compound. They were able to have comedic cameos. You know, he had Private Party come help him when like Santana and Ortiz showed up, and like
Right.
because there was a wrestling ring outside, they were able to do like some high flying spots and some group stuff in the ring, which was cool. It wasn't just people hitting stuff, you know, just using chairs and weapons, like just hitting each other, because like those matches to me can sometimes get old. um
Right.
but you know, they have cameos. They have Hurricane Helms and Gangrel show up.
Gangrel, man. I mean,
Fucking
if there was
Gangrel from the fucking 90s.
Brood from the fucking Brood, man, I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, if there was ever a person I never expected to see on pro wrestling television, again, Gangrel was it. But I mean, how perfect was that? Like, when you want to talk about surprise appearances, there's two, especially one right there. And the way that they worked them into the match was absolutely fantastic. And I will admit, as a pro wrestling mark, I popped hard when I saw both of those guys on TV or on my computer screen, I guess I should say.
I popped hard with the fucking fireworks.
Oh man,
They're shooting
right?
fireworks at each other like they're guns. I was like, oh my
But
god.
but
Yeah.
also, how many wrestling matches, or I mean, how many wrestling rings does Matt Hardy have at his house?
Yeah, apparently at least two, because there was
Right,
one
he had one
outside and one
outside.
inside.
I was just like, geez, and the way it's like you have a grand piano set up inside, the same area as you have this like wrestling ring, like so
Yeah.
bizarre. But I mean, Matt Hardy, and that's the thing. It's like people talk about Jeff Hardy all the time, which I'm over Jeff Hardy. Like, it's not that I don't think he's a good wrestler, and it's not that I didn't like what he did during the Attitude Era, but he's still doing the same shit he did in the Attitude Era. He still comes out to the same song, dresses the same, still does the exact same moves. Whereas Matt Hardy, you can tell, has a mind for the pro wrestling
Yep.
business. Like he has been able to reinvent himself, and this whole broken Matt Hardy gimmick he did in TNA or Impact or whatever it was called when he was there, like that put that promotion back on the map. It gave people a reason to talk about that promotion.
Yeah.
And
It was the only reason I was interested to try to check it out again, was because everyone said that stuff was so funny.
the broken Matt Hardy brother Nero feud was fantastic, and it really elevated Matt Hardy again. And I think that's one of the reasons why they went back into the WWE and had a tag run as the Hardy Brothers again. Or the
Yeah.
Hardy Boys, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when the Matt Jackson was talking about when he signed Matt Hardy. He said, he's like, we didn't just sign him for his being a performer. We signed him for his mind.
Right.
Because, you think about, like, he was the Hardy Boys for a while, and then, when Jeff broke out and became a star, he kind of floundered for a little while. But like what he did was, like, at one point he lost weight and came up with the Matt Hardy version 1, like, cruiserweight gimmick, which,
Right.
like, who would have ever thought? And he had a great feud with Edge, but then he just was never quite given a chance. He was kind of thrown always into, like, the mid card. He was thrown to the ECW joke third brand to be ECW champion, but he was never really given a real shot like Jeff was. And so when he left, for TNA, it's like, well, we'll see what happens. But like TNA kind of often just picks up people that leave WWE, and we don't know what they're going to do. And all of a sudden, like, the podcast I listen to, they're like, oh my God, did you see this thing? Did you see this thing? And like, they're talking about all this stuff that Matt Hardy's doing, and this character's like, ah, like the weird noise and the bleached hair. And he's like doing this bad accent, and like all these things that it just sounded so entertaining and so different, especially of Matt Hardy. I'm like, do a bunch of people care about Matt Hardy like more than they used to? So yeah, I was excited when he came to AEW because I think he's going to come up with some interesting things. I just think for me, this feud with Sammy has gone on way too long because they had a match together. They were in the Stampede Stadium Stampede match back in May at Double or Nothing. And I'm pretty sure
Right.
after that was when they started kind of having a singles feud. And then eventually, that led to All Out. They did a tables match on AEW. There was like the different botches with Matt being busted open on the chair and then Matt Hardy falling and all this stuff that I'm like, okay, guys, this was a lot of fun. What we just saw, Elite Deletion, this was fun. Let's end it. Let's
Right.
go out on a high note, and let's put Sammy with someone else. Let's put Matt with someone else, because like you said, Matt can put over some young stars, maybe have a little resurgence in the mid or upper card, but like get Sammy away from him. He's got other inner circle stuff he could do. Let's end this feud.
Right. Right. Delete. Delete. Delete.
Delete. Speaking of inner circle, how do you like that transition?
There you go. Good one.
We had Chris Jericho, Le Champion, the Demo God, versus Maxwell Jacob Freeman, MJF. If MJF wins, he is joining the winner, the inner circle, the winner circle, the inner circle. So we got to talk about the greatest segment in pro wrestling history.
Oh my god.
Le Dinner Debonair, is that what they called it?
I think so, yeah. I mean, who'd have thunk that those two would have busted out into a song and dance number?
Right? And like with no preemptive, like, oh yeah, like they sing or whatever. Like, sure, Jericho is part of Fozzy, but like there was just no no setup for it. It was just like boom, musical, and we're like, okay, I don't hate it, but like, what the fuck? I mean,
I marked out so hard, dude. I marked out so hard because I wasn't expecting it, and I was just like, I heard MJF sing, and I was just like, wait, what? Is that actually his voice?
Apparently, he was in choir.
Apparently, yeah, that's what I heard. He almost sounded like Brian the dog from Family Guy. But I just want to say, like, I could watch Jericho and MJF do anything together.
For sure.
Those guys, you want to talk about chemistry? There's chemistry.
Yep.
Like, those guys have such great chemistry, and they work off of each other and with each other so well. And one thing that I wrote down was that MJF is 24 years old. He's been in pro wrestling for 5 years. And this guy absolutely understands the art of pro wrestling, much like veterans that have been in the business for 20, 30 years. There's just something about MJF where he just understands pro wrestling. He understands this character, this gimmick that he's developed, which is probably just like who he is as a person, just turned up to like 10, 11, 12, whatever, volume it's at. But I mean, I remember seeing him in AAW, like wrestling in Logan Auditorium in Chicago. And then, and that's the same thing with like some of these other people that are now like on AEW or on NXT. It's like there's been quite a few people I've seen wrestling in the indie circuit in Chicago that are now on television, and MJF is one of those people, and he was just as fantastic on the indie circuit as he is now. And he's one of those people where, to me, like, he is an old school heel in the sense where, like, Braun Strowman, when he's on WWE programming, is the monster among men. Come get these hands. But when he's on Instagram, he's Adam Scher. He's who he is in real life, showing him hunting and fishing. And it's just like continuity. There's that word again. It's just like, can we get some continuity here? Like, I know this is the character you play on TV, but sometimes as a wrestling fan, like, I would like you to uphold a part of this gimmick in your real life. And MJF does that. Like, he is the heel MJF in real life, giving the middle finger to child fans at autograph signings. Like, I think he plays it well on and off screen.
Absolutely. Everyone in AEW knows he's a star in the making, and
right.
There's a couple things going into this match. I was really curious what they were going to do with him after his feud with Moxley. because I get it why they didn't want to put the title on him yet. That's fine. You know, he's 24 years old, and Jericho just crossed his 30th year wrestling. So that's
Yeah, he just turned 50.
that's the comparison right there. Jericho and even Mox, you know, other people see MJF's the future. Like, it's just, and he even says, he's like, I'm not the future, I'm the present and the future. You know, like
Right.
he's better than you, and he knows it, and like he's outstanding on the mic. I think, you know, he doesn't go into the ring and he's not going to do a super kick party, but he tells good stories in the ring. He's entertaining to watch. Even like he does little things where like he'll get vaulted up into a back body drop and be like, oh shit. You know?
Yes. Yes.
And it's just like, when you're a fan watching the heel yell like, oh shit, we're like, yeah, we want the babyface to beat him up, you know, because that's the story they're telling. And I'll admit, the one thing I think I was looking forward to, and I knew that MGF was probably going to win, was the Inner Circle has been boring for a while. The Inner Circle started out hot. You know, Jericho was champion. He was Le Champion. Like, he was actually the champ. And so, like, they had a great run. But then when the Stadium Stampede. I got it that time.
Many mumbling mice, red leather, yellow leather.
When that match happened, Inner Circle lost, and they've been kind of floundering ever since. Like, Jericho had his feud with Orange Cassidy. Santana and Ortiz had the stuff with Best Friends, but Sammy's been facing Matt Hardy for like 6 months, and like for the most part the Inner Circle hasn't been doing much, and they haven't been winning. So like they needed something fresh. I was like, they're either gonna break up soon, like someone's gonna turn face, or like they're gonna turn on one of their members and like kick them out. But they decided like, no, Jericho and MJF clearly love working together because they've done matches or not matches, but like promos and backstage segments together, and they clearly have fun. It's like, let's put them together. Let's put MJF in the group, and who knows? A few months from now, MJF could like kick out Jericho, or he could kick out someone, and then they feud, whatever it may be. I hope that they don't rush this too much, because there's a lot of legs with what you could do now that you have someone like him in that mix. It gives him something to do to keep him away from the title, so that like someday he can, you know, if he doesn't go for the TNT title, maybe it just has other feuds to break up him going for that title again.
Right.
And I gotta say, I loved this finish.
Yes.
It was such a great sequence where you think he's going to use the diamond ring, you know, but then Jericho gets Floyd the baseball bat, which the fact that he names the baseball bat Floyd, he gets the bat and he's going to use it. MJF flicks him off, falls to the mat a la Eddie Guerrero, and the ref's just like, did you hit him with the bat? And Jericho's like, MJF rolls him up. 1, 2, 3. He's in the Inner Circle. I'm like, fucking awesome.
Well, and that's the second time I've seen that Eddie Guerrero style finish in pro wrestling within the last couple of weeks. Because Ricochet did that in a match on Raw against, I believe it was Cedric Alexander a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Where like he picked up a chair, smashed it on the mat, threw it over, I don't remember if it was Cedric Alexander or somebody else in the Hurt Business, because that's who he's been feuding with for months. And then he like put his hand over his head, like on his head, like a damsel in distress, and just fell onto the mat. And the ref was like, "Wait a minute, did you just hit him?" So it's like we are now at an era in pro wrestling where a lot of the people we grew up watching and like, you know, Attitude Era and just a little bit past that, a lot of people, they're our age now, that are pro wrestlers, and they're starting to pay homage to these wrestlers. You know, the Sweet Chin Music is now the super kick that almost everybody's doing. You know, Kevin Owens is doing the stunner. You have the homage to Eddie Guerrero, which it's not just that finish that MJF did, but it's also like these frog splashes. You know, we saw the Swanton Bomb in you know, this pay-per-view as well. But I love the fact that MJF is now in the inner circle because I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that.
For sure.
He and Wardlow.
Yeah, and Wardlow. It's going to be an interesting dynamic. Like, I have a feeling that whether it's Sammy or maybe not Jake Hager, because I don't particularly care about him, but like him or like maybe Santana and Cheese, like some people are going to get kicked out by MJF. I feel like MJF's going to have a coup and take over the inner
Right.
circle. But I hope they really enjoy him and Jericho doing promos together, because it's already been must see TV when they're together. Let's keep them
Agreed.
together for a while before they fight again. Um,
Right.
but let's go ahead and move on to our main event, which is for the AEW World Championship. It is Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in an I Quit match.
So, one thing I want to bring up real quick that I think you'll like, the referee in this match, Bryce Remsburg, is the referee that did the Invisible Man versus Invisible
Yeah.
Stan. He works for AEW now, and when I was watching him on Dynamite, I was like, why does this guy look so familiar? And I was like, he's the referee from that Invisible Man match that you showed me.
Yeah.
But also, Eddie Kingston, such a badass, but he was dressed like a member of the Spirit Squad.
Which I was wondering about that, because like I haven't seen Kingston wrestle too much. You know, I've heard great things for a while, especially about his promo. But the fact that, yeah, he's got this bright green outfit, I was like, okay, all right, I don't hate it, but I'm also a little bit surprised.
He looked like a gangster Power Ranger. Um, and like I was a little familiar with Eddie Kingston before he joined AEW because I would watch NWA Power and he was on there, but I didn't know who he was prior to that. And he would just cut some killer promos. But you know, one thing I'll say about this that really surprised me is for the fact that it was a title match and they've been building up this feud between Moxley and Kingston. I was surprised in how short it was.
I see. Okay, to me, I don't mind that.
I didn't say I mind it.
Yeah.
I was surprised on how short, because it was only like maybe 15, 20
I
minutes
think
tops.
well, the timer on Wikipedia says 17, and I never quite
Not
know.
including entrances.
Yeah, which I'm not sure. Yeah, if that includes entrances or not, but yeah, I think it's okay that it was shorter, because AEW has already done plenty of brutal matches, you know,
Right.
especially Moxley, you know, and I get it. That's part of like his like past and like sort of part of his gimmick. He's been in just brutal matches. They like he was in two different lights out matches, with one with Joey Janela and one with Kenny Omega. And they were much like this. They're very brutal. And like I'm not a wild fan of these kind of matches, but this is what AEW does. They, like you said, they appeal to many demographics. There are people that love brutal, violent wrestling like this. There are some who love traditional matches, tag team matches. There's some that love comedy, you know, Orange Cassidy and such. So I'm glad that they have a variety, and it's like not something that they do every show. It's not like every show has a lights out match or an I Quit match, but I can only take so much of it personally, just because I get too caught in my head about it. I'm like, guys, like stop. Like this is, I know that like some of this is like, you know, it's choreographed in a way to where they're maybe not getting as hurt as they want, but like they are bleeding, they are hurting themselves in some way, and you know, who knows how gimmicked the barbed wire and such is, or the rubbing alcohol. But I just, after a while, I think about it, I'm like, oh man, like I hope that this doesn't come back to hurt them down the road, because like they've already been doing this kind of match for years. Like they've known each other since like the early 2008 or something. Like we don't need this all the time. I think it was fine for what it was. I think they built up a good personal story, which I appreciated. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going for the title because like you beat me once, but like I never tapped, I passed out. Like that was part of it, but also there's a built-in personal history between these two men.
Right.
I just I only want so much brutality like this, especially in the main event. And like, there's been a couple times. This is now like the third out of like AEW's 10 pay per views. This is like the third or fourth that's ended with a brutal match like this.
Well, and I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I didn't think this match was bad. It was a good match, and I was actually having a conversation with a buddy of mine earlier about this, but I'm just not a fan of these styles of matches. I'm not a fan of the blood and guts. I'm not a fan of the brutality. It's one of the reasons I never really got that into ECW. It's because, if it's once in a while, fine, but I'm not a fan of the gore. It's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of horror movies. It's one of the reasons I've never watched like the Saw franchise.
Yep.
And as a fan of pro wrestling, and man, I got a lot of feelings on these styles of matches. I am not the demographic for this match. I
Same.
understand that this
Yep.
is a part of John Moxley's past, but like you can leave it in the past, buddy. Like you don't have to do that anymore. You probably felt like you had to do that early on in your career in order to get attention, or maybe that's like the style that you really like, but it's like you're a star, dude. Like you've got money. Like you don't have to do this to your body anymore. And when I watch matches like this, I'm like, you don't need to do this. Like I would much rather you have like a good wrestling match and preserve your body than get the barbed wire out all the time. Like I don't enjoy watching those matches. They're very cringeworthy to me.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons I never got into backyard wrestling, because when I watch matches like this, it's like,
I just think about they're people. They're real people. Like
well, that, and it's just like, where does the skill set come in? It takes no skill set to beat somebody with barbed wire. It takes no skill set to, bash somebody over the head with like, uh, light bulbs, like I love Mick Foley. I absolutely love Mick Foley. But when you take away that hardcore, brutal style, what did he have? He wasn't really known for being a technical wrestler. He was known for being thrown off of like really high things and, putting his body through hell. And I guess I am glad that that's why this match is only like 17 minutes, is because I just can't handle watching a lot of this style of matches. Like as soon as I see the thumbtacks get pulled out, I'm just like, nope, I'm good. As soon as I see the barbed wire, I feel the same way.
yeah, I mean, I talked earlier about overexposure with like Orange Cassidy's gimmick when it comes to comedy, but like I think AEW needs to be careful with that same thing with brutal matches like this. I'll just call them,
Right.
brutal hardcore matches, whatever they want to gimmick call them. Like this I Quit match, I get it. It's the first time you've done an I Quit match, but here's the thing. Like there's been other I Quit matches where it wasn't quite as brutal or bloody. Like there was more like story involved in there. And to me, they have to be careful of overexposing themselves to it because like, okay, let's think like just within the last year, like I said, lights out match with Joey Janela, lights out match with Kenny Omega. I think on Dynamite, Omega and Janela had a lights out match too. Mox also, I think somewhere else had like a hardcore match of some sort. And then Kingston's opening match with Cody was no holds barred, and all of the matches thumbtacks came out. In
Right.
all of them, barbed wire came out. In
Right.
all of them, something else that was kind of like an X factor, such as this one was like, oh, it's rubbing alcohol, or like, oh, they're wrapping barbed wire around their fists, or whatever. And like another match, they had a big board that had a bunch of mouse traps on it, and like,
Right.
I get it, you guys are tough, but I don't want that in the main event. I want that to be
Right.
somewhere on the mid card, like this Elite Delete match, which was not quite a main event, but somewhere in the middle. I think that's where these matches belong. You know what? How about this? When Mox loses the world title, you want to give him something to do? If he wants to do this every fucking week with someone else, have at it. I won't exactly enjoy it, but at least it's just somewhere on the card and it's not taking up the main event spot. Because I'm sure these guys could have put on just a great match, and you didn't need them to do something this brutal. And also, like, Mox has been around for a year, just like AEW has on TNT. Like, I can only take so much of this before it becomes repetitive. Like,
Right.
it doesn't feel special anymore. Like, for example, right now, the cage match feels special because there's been one cage match. It was Cody versus Wardlow building up to the Cody MJF match. That's it. When you do these matches every couple months and thumbtacks always come out, I'm like, here we go again. When they gonna do the
Yeah.
thumbtacks? When they gonna do the chair shots? When are they gonna go through a table? It's gonna happen. I know.
That's like having a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view and having 3 Hell in a Cell matches. It's like,
Hey.
how do you take this one gimmick match and make it different 3 times in one pay-per-view?
Yep.
And I guess that's, where as a fan of pro wrestling, where some of my frustrations come in, because it's like, well, as soon as we see the thumbtacks or the barbed wire or whatever it may be, we know exactly what's going to happen. So it's not like it's much of a surprise, but also, and now I'm just repeating myself, I can only handle so much of the blood and guts. It's just like, there is a time and a place for it. I guess for this pay-per-view, that was the time and the place for it, literally on the match card. That's how they built it up, because it was for the championship belt. But for me personally, the less I see of those types of matches, the better off I am.
The better off I am too. Like you said, I get it. We're not the demographic. There are plenty of those who enjoy it. Good for you. I'd rather that be in the mid card. I'd rather it feel special. I just don't want it in the main event, and I don't want it super frequently.
Yeah, and I also think those types of matches need to be reserved for when, like, there's a really long feud and a really long grudge match, and they've had 3, 4 matches already, and they're like, well, we've had this type of match, we've had this type of match, we've had this type of match. Well, you know what? Forget it. This feud ends with an I quit match, and then you can pull out of the big stops like that.
Like the
But this
Mimosa
was like, what?
Mayhem match.
Exactly. When are we going to see more of those? Hopefully never again. But it's like, this is like, what? Kingston and Moxley's second match in AEW, and it's just like, did you really have to pull out all those big stops at that point? Like, you could have saved that for a little while down the road, but once again, I'm just repeating myself. I'm not the demographic for this type of match.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say is, like you said, we're not the demographic, but also you can beat each other up without it needing to be filled with weapons. You
Right.
can have where you're just pounding each other in different ways. You're using different submission holds. You're finding creative ways to do that. But that's the thing, is that's not creative when you just hit each other with stuff. And so,
Well, and that just ends up becoming the whole focal point of the match. It's less about the art of pro wrestling and more like, oh, what's inside this bag? What's in this bag? Everybody, guess what's inside this bag?
which JR had a great line when the bag came out. He's like, "It's not a bag of chocolate."
Yeah, exactly.
JR, who's keeping chocolate in a bag? Like,
My God, he just slammed him on some chocolates. I guess life is like a box of one, and then Moxley's gonna slam you on it. It's like, Jesus Christ. But
Yeah.
I mean, all in all, I'd say that this was a solid pay-per-view. And if I could give it a grade, I'd probably say B+.
yeah, I'd say B plus A minus. Because almost
Yeah.
all the finishes that should have happened in my eyes to
Right.
prolong the stories and the wrestlers the best. Couple things weren't, the women's match lacked. This match I wasn't a huge fan of in the main event, but like Jericho MJF, Omega Page, the tag match. I enjoyed Orange Cassidy and John Silver. I enjoyed the Elite Delete for what it was. Overall, felt so different compared to All Out, and I'm really excited for what they do the next couple months with matches on Dynamite, but also going into Revolution.
And I also hope they keep their pay-per-views every couple of months for a while, because then it makes it more special as opposed to doing it once a month.
Yeah. Wait, you don't want Payback and SummerSlam within like a week of each other?
So, like, I was listening to Arn, the podcast Arn with Arn Anderson and Conrad Thompson. Shout out to those guys. I know they're big time listeners. Um, and Arn Anderson was saying that at one point in time in the WWE, this is probably around 2010-ish, like they had 22 pay-per-views in a year.
Jesus.
It's just like that's 18 too many. Like when you consider the big four that they used to have, it's just like, I watch a lot of the pay-per-views now, or actually they're not even pay-per-views because you're not buying it on pay-per-view. They're network specials because you can't watch it if it's not on the network.
Yeah.
So they need to stop calling them pay-per-views and call them network specials. Um, but it's like sometimes you watch a pay-per-view or a network special for WWE, and it's like, well, this is just a glorified Raw or SmackDown. Like this doesn't feel like a big fight feel or a big time pay-per-view or special or whatever it may be. So once again, like I said earlier, it's not a treat if you have it all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I necessarily only want AEW to continue to have four. Like maybe, like you said, though, if they're gonna start doing more, like slowly build it, like just do one more. Or if you're gonna do something else, have some really special stuff happen on Dynamite because it makes Dynamite feel more important. But
Right.
also, you know, you can do something where maybe one time in 2 hours you do a tournament, sort of King of the Ring style, or you do maybe another cage match. You can come up with plenty of special gimmicks, sort of like I enjoyed their 1 year anniversary show. They did all the titles were on the line for the first time
Right.
on Dynamite to do them all in
Right.
the same show.
Right. That was really good. And then they had that dog collar match between Brody Lee and Cody Rhodes on there too. So it's like every once in a while they do things on Dynamite that's like really special. But it's just like, well,
The
great.
parking lot brawl.
Oh, that was so good, dude. I mean, that was one of the best matches of the year on Dynamite. So yeah, I'm a fan of AEW. We've been to every single pay-per-view that they've had in Chicago since before they became an actual company. So, I mean, the company holds a special place in my heart. So, even if I do say not so great things about it every once in a while, it's just my opinion as a fan.
Yeah, it's just because we want them to succeed. We want WWE to
Yes.
have competition. Because hopefully
Well,
someday that'll make WWE want to improve when AEW starts gaining traction on them someday.
well, it's not even that I want WWE to have competition. It's just I want more options as a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Like, WWE has been the only major wrestling promotion for years.
Yeah.
And it's just become a huge watered down version of itself. That now there are other options out there like AEW. Impact has been around for a while, but it's getting elevated with all the, wrestlers that are on there. There's a new promotion out there called UWN. And, even the indie circuit, there's been a revival in the indie circuit as well. So, like, that to me is what I love about those promotions like AEW and the independent wrestling circuit is like, I feel like now more than ever there's far more pro wrestlers that are in existence.
Yeah.
So they need places in order to let their talent and their craft shine. And WWE is not always the best place for these types of people. And I think, John Moxley kind of proved that AEW is a little bit better for his style, for, the type of gimmick and character he is. Like, AEW is a much better place for Omega, for the Young Bucks. I don't think that they would do as well in a place like WWE because they would probably either get sidelined or they would just be mid-carders or furloughed or, or whatever it is eventually. So as a wrestling fan, I don't care about competition. I'm just happy to see more options.
For sure. And I'm very excited for what the future holds for them. I think it's considering in their second year, or excuse me. Yeah, they started end of 2019. 2020 was their first full year, and they were thrown into the coronavirus,
Right.
with no crowds for a long time. I think that they've adapted and handled things very well. And so I'm very excited to see what they continue to do.
I agree.
All right, Michael. Well, as always, it's been great to chat wrestling with you. And
Yeah, man, the pleasure's been all yours.
and we're going to be, as we said before, working our way back. And now that we've seen these, we're going to be jumping back to Double or Nothing and maybe the first Full Gear and some other pay-per-views of the past. So let us know what you thought of Full Gear 2020. And Michael, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, that's a good question because the last time I had nothing, but now this time I'm back on the Twitter. So if you want to follow me on the Twitter, I'm at Palmenderi, which sounds like it's spelled exactly how you think it sounds. So you can follow me on there because I post lots of opinions on things. Or you can follow me
lots of opinions on things.
Lots of opinions on things, various things. Or you can follow me on Instagram at the greatest musical of all time.
Awesome. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Brandon Prosek. Please subscribe to the Entertainment Buffet channel. We have tons of content coming your way, including more stuff from us and plenty of other creators. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.